Yeah, I had to take quite a few breaks here. There's a point somewhere I think before I inked the bottom page, I had to stop and I went and took like an hour and a half long break. It's kind of concerning. I did not finish this page in one day like I wanted to. I went for a walk. There's some woods behind where I live, and I went to go explore those because I haven't really done that quite yet. So there I am finally whiting out that, dipping into the acrylic. I use a different brush than what I use for the black ink because I don't want to risk there being any black ink in the brush. I mean, even though I clean it out, there's always like some trace elements, and that's not good when you're trying to make something white. Fly. I just noticed that a little fly landed on my page. So yeah, here I am. I'm inking Vipneg's body after he's gotten his chest punched through. I say inking, I'm penciling it in right now because I hadn't quite done it yet. And sometimes, like with the panels that you got a lot of stuff going on in, I can only draw certain things at a time because after a while my eyes have trouble discerning everything from one another. It's a big old piece of building that's supposed to have crashed down. As I said, it's kind of like a worn-torn city street that they're in. The Damak nations, they build huge cities to occupy their populace. They put them to work. The rulers do. Because they've been under sanctions for centuries. And have not been allowed to really legally trade with outside nations. So the vast majority of the population lives in poverty, but the rulers and their enforcers don't. They're a fascist theocracy. So they're kind of ruled by a mixture of religion and corporations. So but they also have like an immense deposit of resources, of natural resources. Both the economic food source, which is this mineral called ethron, and lots of construction metals and ores and stuff. But they're not allowed to trade it with anybody, at least not legally. So they just used it to freaking build all these giant mega cities all throughout their nation that are largely unoccupied and just sit there looking cool. What their logic is, well, it's anyone's guess. Tyrants don't usually operate based on logic. At least not for extended periods of time. I'd like to think maybe it's to impress their enemies who might be spying on them via satellite. I mean, the vast majority, a good chunk of their population gets punished by being turned into drones. But as I said, their regime at this point in the story, their regime has fallen to the coalition forces, who themselves aren't as good as they like to believe themselves. It's something I try to do with all my stories. Like, even if I don't agree with the main characters or whoever I happen to be portraying, I try to just be as honest about portraying them from their perspective as I can be, or unbiased, I should say. You know, because as has been said, very few evil people think of themselves as evil. They don't think they think that they're doing the right thing. They think that their way is the good way. Which kind of goes to that nearly cliche saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I like to modify that by saying the road to tyranny is paved with good intentions. And once again, I've broken out the my nib pin. I can't tell you what that brand is. I bought it from a fella at an anime con. He was selling a whole bunch of these suckers. They're steel nibs. Manufactured, 30, 40 years ago, and I had a couple of them, but I have like 3 or 4 of them. I had smaller ones that I was using before, and this one's interesting too. I mean, in terms of just the lines I get from it, but the other ones I ended up breaking by accidentally knocking them against something, and causing the pins to bend. And once they're bent, they're useless. I really do enjoy the line I get from a steel nib pen, but I can only handle drawing with one for so long. It makes my. I would say that with just any pen, drawing with one kind of pen, because each one is structured differently. Each one require. Oh, I'm about to fuck up this drawing right now. Excuse my language. Those 4 spots that I'm filling in with ink are supposed to be white. I'm gonna go back into the computer and make them white again. And right there is when I realized it. When I paused, I was like, God damn it. Yeah, for large patches of black, a brush is always for me the best thing to use. I don't like using those pit brush pens. Those are great for sketches and stuff when you're like at a convention and you don't want to bring a vial of ink with you and accidentally spill it all over the place. But they dry up pretty quickly for the amount of inking that I do. Whereas just having a vial of India ink right there to dip into, it meets my needs. I mentioned earlier that I use Speedball ink. I do prefer, when it comes to brush work, I do prefer Doc Martens brand. But the thing is, the vials they come in, I don't really care for. It's not nearly as convenient as the Speedball vial, which I've been using the same ball of Speedball vial for several years. I just refill it with a huge tube of ink. I haven't found any huge tubes of Doc Martens. It's way more expensive than the Speedball, but it's a lot blacker and thicker. It's not as watery. Which you do need to water it down when you're using the nib. The Doc Martens is too thick to use on a nib by itself, I've found. You have to dilute it a little bit, because it won't run out of the pen. It'll clog it. I'm still experimenting, like, by page to page, Like, I've yet to really settle on a specific inking technique. Like right here, I'm keeping it relatively clean, using these containment lines right here. That's which I'm inking in. I'm kind of deciding on the fly, like where things should be thicker, you know, trying to based on the light source, you know, and where I'm gonna put a containment line, where I'm not gonna put a containment line. I hear a lot of people, the word they use, you know, is to make the image pop more, and that's pretty much exactly why you want to give it a containment line. Though, I guess, I mean, in a way, I am kind of like taking up more time than is really necessary. I mean, if I'm going to do what I've been doing digitally to these pages later on, because after all, I'm going to scan this and do some gray toning for it, because I do things in black and white totally. Technique I've been using for a good chunk of this book so far is to lighten the lines of the background so that the foreground pops out more. Like I'll digitally paint some white over the lines so that they will be grayer, you know, and less black. And it gives it a hazier look, you know, like it's further back there. Kind of similar to what it would almost make what I'm doing here, which is draw these containment lines, unnecessary for the final printed version. So I don't know if I'll probably keep on doing that, but it does add a lot more time to that I spend on each page, which tells me I probably would not be able to do like penciling, inking, and lettering a monthly comic book series like they used to do back in the old days. In fact, of course, when you think about guys like Jack Kirby, who, for you manga fans out there who don't read American comics, Jack Kirby, he's the guy who essentially created the look of the X-Men and the Avengers. He, you know, and he was the first guy to draw those characters. He designed them and all that. But that guy, he was penciling. I'm pretty sure that's what all he did was pencil. He would pencil X-Men, Avengers, and Fantastic Four. You know, and it like 24 pages, 25 pages. I think he also did a cover page too. So, you know, he was doing that every month. That's 75 pages a month that he was drawing. All right, and you see me do, of course, I don't know, his line work, when I think about it, it's really not. Some people want to say, oh, it's really simple looking, but it's really not. It's actually, it's pretty. There's a lot of lines he had to draw. But that guy, apparent from what I could tell, he hardly had to use a ruler at all. You know. And for some reason, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to fix that later. It took me a while I wasn't sure what I was going to do with this wall here. So when I printed out my layouts, I printed them out in black and white, which unfortunately I lost a lot of definition as a result. I mean, it's way cheaper to print them out in black and white, like 90% cheaper. But I was wondering if I lost any geometry on this building here, on this building wall, which I'm just doing solid black because that's how dark the shadow was on the printout. So I'm just going to do it that way. And I wasn't sure, but I didn't feel like firing